Let's begin by lying on your back, everyone, please. Lying flat on your back. And taking these first moments to check in with yourself, your body, doing a scan from your head down into your feet. And noticing those parts of yourself that might be resisting to release into the floor. Maybe those parts are really small, like really tiny parts. And even the parts that are meeting the floor, they also might be resisting a little bit. So take those moments to scan the back of yourself. And then please bring your left arm towards the sky. And begin to lengthen your left arm up towards the ceiling. And then return to the floor. And a few more times, lengthening your left arm and returning. Notice if in this action of lengthening your arm, you go to that point in which you start to strain yourself, perhaps your neck, perhaps your chest, your abdomen, and perhaps you have to go a bit less. And please let that be. Release. Rest your arm on the floor. Notice your breathing. Notice your breathing. So please roll onto your right side. And you can put something to lean your head on. If you notice that your head, your neck is too forced, you can put something underneath your head. And please start to move your left shoulder forward a little bit and then return. Forward in the direction of the wall that you're gazing now. A little bit forward and then return. Maybe just one more time and then rest for a moment. Notice how when you are on your back, the center of gravity, your pelvis, it's totally connected with the floor. And how it might have been more difficult to lift your arm when you were on your back. You felt perhaps a little bit heavier than now on your side when you're moving your left shoulder forward and returning. Just notice if that maybe happened to you. And please return to lie on your back. Lengthen your left arm towards the sky again, and please, you will add the lifting of your left hip as well. So your left shoulder, left arm lifts towards the sky, and then your left hip as well. And it doesn't have to be much, just enough so that you know that you are lifting your left hip towards the sky. Shoulder and hip can go together. Again, please notice any muscular tension. Of course, your muscles will be engaged, but how much you want to engage them. And please let that be and take a little pause. Release your arm. Notice if perhaps already those parts of yourself that at the beginning they felt that they were perhaps holding, they are starting to let go. Notice your breath, easy breathing. And please roll onto your right side again. And as you're lying on your side, notice if you are a bit more rolled towards your back, or perhaps you're rolled a little bit forward, or you sense that you are right in the sideline, on your right sideline. It's not because you have to correct anything. I don't want you to correct anything. Just you observe, you feel. And start to intentionally roll yourself a little bit backwards, slowly, and a little bit forward, and again back, more as if you were rolling over your right shoulder blade, and forward. And then establish for yourself what would be, or which would be, that center point in which you sense that you're not rolled forward, not rolled back. Establish for yourself. And then begin to move your left shoulder a little bit forward and return. And a little bit forward and return. And let your shoulder be quiet and start to move your left hip a little bit forward and return. Your knees are bent at the level of your hips, so it's like a 90-degree angle, as if you were seated on a chair. Your knees bend in that angle. And please roll back onto your back. Notice again if anything has shifted from the first time that you were lying on your back. Perhaps there is a deeper connection with the floor. And please stand your left foot on the floor so that your left knee is facing the sky. Bring your left arm towards the sky, your left hand facing the ceiling, long arm, and then lift your left leg in the air as if you were gonna bring your left thigh towards your abdomen. So your left foot is away from the floor. And start to lengthen your left knee towards the sky. So imagine that you want to touch the ceiling both with your left fingers and your left knee. And your left leg is still in this kind of 90-degree angle relationship. How's your breath? You don't have to go a lot. Maybe it's just 1 centimeter or less than a centimeter. And you lengthen, reaching up, and then return. How's your breath? Perhaps your head rolls a little bit to the right. Perhaps your chest bone also rolls a little bit to the right. And when you feel it's enough, please rest on your back. You can keep your eyes open, keep your eyes closed. Notice what serves you better. And again, please bend your left knee, left foot standing on the floor, left arm towards the sky. Lift your left leg away from the floor, but keep your left knee bent. And begin this lengthening of your left knee, left arm towards the ceiling. And start to turn a little bit to your right side as you lengthen. So imagine your intention is to roll onto your right side, but avoid rolling yet. You lengthen, you roll a little bit onto your right side, and then you return. And notice when you lengthen through your arm, which part is initiating the lengthening of your arm? Your scapula, your shoulder blade, your clavicle, or the whole shoulder girdle, or just your shoulder joint. And at some point, roll onto your right side. You don't have to be very detailed in how you're rolling because we're not exploring the rolling itself today. So roll onto your right side. Keep your little support for your head if you need it. And bring your legs together. Left knee on top of your right knee. And please lengthen your arms long in the direction of the wall that your eyes are facing. So you keep your left palm right on top of your right palm, like forming a triangle shape in which your hands together are the point of the triangle, and the base of the triangle is the back of your heart. So begin to slide your left hand a little bit forward, just a little bit forward, and then return. Slowly, slowly. And so you start to glide your left, both elbows are long. Start to slide your left hand forward and then return. And notice again which part of your shoulder or which part of your arm you are imagining that is going forward or that is initiating the movement. Do you think of your fingers when you move forward, or your wrist, or your shoulder? Which part? Is your breathing available? And please rest for a moment there on your side. So keep your arms as they are, long, one arm on top of the other, and your left leg on top of your right leg, bend 90 degrees, and start to move your left hip forward, sliding on top of your right leg and back. It doesn't have to be a big movement. It can be small. And notice if perhaps you're moving your left hip from your right hip as it rolls on the floor. Again, making these distinctions. Aware from where are you initiating the movement of your left hip? From the back of your hip, from the front, from the bottom hip, your right hip, or maybe from your knee, your left knee, imagining that you're lengthening and then it carries your left hip forward. And please take a little rest on your back. Yeah, on your back. Any sighs through your mouth, long sighs are very welcome. And please return to lying on your right side with your arms long, your knees bent at the level of your hips. Yeah, like this, your arms are long like this. Yeah, that's good. And you will start to move your left hip forward and your left shoulder forward at the same time. So coordinating this movement of your left hip and your left shoulder at the same time, a little bit forward and then return. How's your breath? Can we leave our breathing free and easy. Forward and then return. Notice the side of your body that is on the floor, how it can stay long and connected with the floor. Sometimes one of the holdings that we can find is on this position, we're holding little parts of ourselves, of our ribs, of our abdomen, of our neck. And please rest for a moment on your side. Pause the movement. So we'll give you a couple of variations, and those variations will include some constrictions, and see how the movement maybe flows or doesn't flow. So start sliding your left hand a little bit forward and return, but you want to keep your left hip without any movement. So your hip stays quiet, left hip is not moving, and only your left shoulder is moving forward and back a little bit. You don't want to roll onto your back. So left shoulder moving forward and back. Remember to keep your left hip quiet. So your left knee is right on top of your right knee and it's not moving. It's not sliding. How's your breath? And notice what your head does. It's rolling forward and backwards, perhaps. And keep doing the movement of your left shoulder, but also keep your head quiet. So it's just your arm moving forward. It might happen that the arm, if you keep your hip stiff, if you keep your head stiff, your arm won't move as much, or you will start to make or use more of your muscles. And your breath might stop as well. So try maybe 2 more times, going just with your left arm and then returning, and then please rest on your back. You can always, as part of taking care of yourself, that means that you can rest whenever you need to. You can go to the toilet, anything. You can sit, observe the other people here in the room. Do what you need to do to feel comfortable. So again, please roll onto your right side with your knees bent, left leg on top of your right leg, arms long. So your left palm on top of your right palm. And now you will keep your left arm quiet. So your left arm is still, no movement in your arm. And only begin to move your left hip a little bit forward, a little bit backwards. Do you notice any effects in your low back, in your upper back, when you slide forward and back your hip, just your left hip? Do you sense that the movement can travel easy through your spine when you keep your left arm stiff? And try also maintaining your head with no movement. Maybe it was already not moving, but deliberately keep your head quiet and only move your hip forward and your hip back a little bit, sliding over your right leg. Just your hip. Notice if your bottom ribs, your right ribs, start to lift from the floor, or they can stay connected with the floor. And please rest for a moment. Stay on your side for now. And I will ask you now to only move your head in the direction of the floor and in the direction of the sky. And you don't move your shoulder nor your hip. How does that feel for you? Do you sense any connection, or the movement just get stuck in your neck? Notice your abdomen, your breath. And please roll onto your back and take a little moment there. So you're gonna lie down on your left side now, please. Left side, yes. The other side, yeah. With your knees together, remember, 90-degree angle, your knees are bent at the level of your hips. Your right arm is on top of your left arm, palms together, elbows long. Take a moment here to feel the weight of your body on your left side. And begin now with the sliding of your right hand a little bit forward, a little bit backwards, and forward. And notice as you keep doing this, what happens in your upper spine, in your middle spine, or more than your spine, in the upper part of your back, in the middle part of your back, in the lower part of your back. And you're welcome to explore going a bit further if you haven't done so. So If you've been moving quite small, you can slide your right hand further forward as long as it feels that you're not forcing. And then returning. Please, can you clarify in your perception if you're going forward with your arm from which part of your arm? Your shoulder, or maybe your hip. Sometimes I find that when I do this session, it's more my hip guiding back and forth, although I am exploring my arm. So see for yourself which part is initiating. And what we're doing here is giving more options to yourself. And please take a little moment on your side. Stay on your side, but pause any movement. Do you notice that perhaps lying on this side, it feels more familiar than the other side? Maybe your preferred side is the other one. So you are on your left side with your arms long, your right leg on top of your left knee, and begin to move your right hip forward and backwards. Forward and backwards. Is it possible to maintain the left side of yourself on the floor? Notice how the movement travels through your whole spine. Or perhaps it gets stuck at any part of your spine. And now please continue with your right hip moving, but keep your right hand quiet, still, with no movement. So yes, your right hip keeps going forward and back, but your right hand stays quiet, and also your head stays quiet. Do you sense any difference? Do you notice that you have to make more effort with your hip forward and backwards if you're not including your arm, your head? Because more than moving your arm and your head is allowing your spine to take this rotation when you roll forward and you roll back. When we don't include rotation in our daily life for anything, we're driving and we want to check over our shoulder, and perhaps we just use our head, we are forcing other parts of ourselves that we don't need to. So please take a little rest on your back. Rest on your back. When we are not including in our self-image the action of the twist, we are forcing more small parts of ourselves, the shoulder, the neck, instead of using our whole rib cage, our pelvis, our hips to rotate. So please bring yourself again, roll onto your left side again, and you keep your right leg on top of your left leg, both arms long, right palm on top of your left palm. And start to move your right shoulder forward and back. And allow everything, whatever is moving, to also move with you, whatever is moving. And then just move your arm and put everything inside, put your head and your hip in silence. So your right arm is moving forward and back, and your head and your right hip are quiet. They are still, not moving. What do you notice? Is there anything that gets more, that stiffens, that you feel that you need to do more effort? How's your breath? Notice your chest bone. And then allow everything to move as well. Your head, your hip going with you. And please take a little moment. Stay on your side if you can. You can always roll onto your back if you need to reset yourself. No problem. Yep, no problem. And please return onto your left side if you're on your back. Yep, return on your left side. Again, arms long. One leg, right leg on top of your left leg. And now begin to move your right hip forward a little bit and your right shoulder backwards a little bit. So these opposite directions for your right hip forward, right shoulder backwards, and back to center. And right hip forward and right shoulder backwards. Notice what your head does. Perhaps it wants to roll in the direction of your shoulder as well. And then move your right hip back and your right shoulder forward. Notice what your head does. Perhaps it wants to roll onto the floor. So keep going. Opposing, moving your hip in one direction and your shoulder in the opposite direction. Please if you start to notice that there is like a some tension in your abdomen, in your back, as you do this, rest for a moment. Take a little moment for yourself. So your right hip, right shoulder into opposite directions. Try different variations. Your right hip forward, your right shoulder back, your right hip back, your right shoulder forward. And take a rest on your back. So almost 50 minutes of practice, and notice if your connection with the floor has become a bit more intimate, less parts of yourself being held or braced. And please roll onto your right side. So the opposite side that you were just doing, rolling onto your right side with your legs again together, 90-degree angle, your knees in relationship with your hips. Your arms are long, left arm on top of your right arm. And begin to explore for yourself this opposition of your arm going in one direction and your hip going in the opposite direction. Slow. Try to start small and slow, at least for the first maybe 3 times. And then you can always increase a little bit the speed and the into a bigger movement if you want, because we get feedback from small movements and sometimes from big movements. It depends on you. But it's very good to try both ranges, really small and then increasing the range gradually. If you haven't tried the opposite way of moving your shoulder in relation to your hip, please try. So your hip and your shoulder are moving in opposite directions. Is this side more available than the other side? Notice how your head moves with this action of the twist, creating the twist as one shoulder moves into the opposite direction of one hip. And please take a little rest, pause for a moment there. Or you can roll onto your back. So when you're ready, there's no rush. You can join us when you're ready to continue for the last bits of the practice. Roll onto your right side with your legs together, left arm on top of your right arm. And this time, we're going to take a different variation with our legs. So your left leg will slide back, and you're going to hook your left leg behind your right leg, behind the back of your right knee. So your left leg is sliding back and is resting on the floor. Take a moment there. Give yourself a little moment. Yeah, I'm here demonstrating if Andrea, if you need a bit of reference, yeah, you can rest your knee on the floor, your back knee. Yeah, yeah. So please stay there. Pause for a moment there. Yeah, so you're on your right side and your left leg is behind you. Your left leg is behind you. You're hiding your left knee behind the back of your right knee. Imagine you have a friendly hand on the right side of your spine at the level of your shoulder blades. So imagine you've got a friendly hand on the right side of your spine at the level of your shoulder blades. And you start to move your left arm forward and back from that part of yourself. So you're starting to move your left arm forward and back, imagining that this friendly hand is moving the area of your shoulder blades at the right side of your spine. How's your breath? So instead of lengthening your left arm from your left shoulder, you're thinking of lengthening your arm from your spine, from the right side of your spine at the level of your shoulder blades. And then that friendly hand will move to your left shoulder blade. And it will help you to move your shoulder blade forward in the direction of your left hand, lengthening, and then back, returning and rolling a little bit onto your back. Just that changes anything in how the movement travels. And then that friendly hand will move into more your middle back. And imagine that friendly hand moving your torso forward in the direction of your left hand, sliding your arm, and then returning. Just your head moves as well. And then please let that be and roll onto your back. Take a little moment on your back. we will do just one more variation. And we will finish for today. So please roll onto your left side. Again, both legs together, right arm on top of your left arm, long. And you will modify the position of your right leg, the upper leg. Some of you did a different thing on the other side. So let's start again. Your right leg will slide back, and you can hook your right knee behind the back of your left knee. That's better. Yeah. Beautiful. Both arms long. Keep your arms long in front of your face. Yeah. And again, imagine this friendly hand on your upper back, on the left side of your spine, the side of your spine that is closer to the floor. And without doing the movement, imagine that friendly hand moving your torso forward so that your right arm lengthens and then brings you back. And start enacting the movement. So forward from this space at the left side of your spine, at the level of your shoulder blades. Does this changes anything in the flow of the movement? And now return to the center and imagine this friendly hand at the back of your right hip. And this friendly hand starts to move your right hip forward and back. And as this friendly hand moves your right hip forward and back, can you move your right shoulder, right arm into the opposite direction, please? So if your right hip moves back, your right shoulder moves forward. If your right hip moves forward, your right shoulder moves back. And your left side of yourself can still be kind of heavy on the floor. Noticing the transmission of force through your spine. If you feel, yes, if you feel that you're doing, yeah, I can see that there is a lot of, effort there. So do it even less. Your system receives that input. Our system is so refined that even the tiniest of the movements, it can do a difference in how we rewire ourselves. So please let that be. Roll onto your back. Roll onto your back. Is there a difference from when you first lie down on your back and Now, and please, when you're ready, roll onto one side of yourself and stand, and take a moment standing. And take a little walk through space. Perhaps you notice this opposition of one hip with the shoulder when you walk. And thank you very, very much.